Hey guys, how you doing? This is Mike McCormick with Advanced Criminology here in Owings Mills, Maryland. Let me tell you something, guys. I want to apologize. I haven't been on in a week because I was under the weather, and although that's not an excuse, but my voice wasn't where it needed to be actually taping on video here. So it was just best that I didn't come back on to talk about anything related to criminal justice issues. But today is Saturday, March the 10th, 2018, and the last time I posted a video was March the 2nd, I believe. Yeah. So, I'm back on the day because just recently as reported in the news by WBAL in an article entitled "Baltimore Police Must Now Disclose Misconduct Allegations." Really? We really want this now it says they must disclose it, but they give the option to the officer. Now, that doesn't make sense. If you say the Baltimore officer must, or excuse me, shall and will comply and disclose his or her file, that makes a difference. But you say must, and then you turn around in the same article and say that it's the officer's decision to whether or not he or she wants to disclose their personnel jacket with allegations of misconduct. So it just defeats the purpose here of what's going on. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff going on, if you guys didn't realize it, between the FOP, the Baltimore Solicitor's Office, as well as Marilyn Mosby's office, State's Attorney for Baltimore City, when it comes to dealing with police criminality, charging police officers, as well as investigation of misconduct that borders along criminal conduct as well. And there's been that kind of relationship for many, many years, particularly between the State's Attorney's Office not pursuing officers when they should in allegations, waiting for the police department to turn over certain information before they pursue those allegations, when in fact they should just conduct their own investigation themselves. If it's a criminal case, you don't need a lot of information necessary from the police department. You can build a case from just having your own investigators go out and talk to people. So you're asking a department that historically over the past 25 years has a problem investigating themselves. It's pointed out in a 177-page report by the Department of Justice that this department has routinely, as a culture, denied the citizens of Baltimore access to internal affairs by way of using a lot of other types of methods, if you will, to get citizens of Baltimore to not file complaints. And I'm going to go over that in just a second because it's unbelievable. And when I give you the statistics, you'll see why that when they talk about an officer, has the option to turn over his internal affairs history, that's not going to happen. What officer would jeopardize his or her career by turning over any documentation in their file, particularly if that documentation would be detrimental to their career? So, I wanted to talk about that because that just made headline news today, or yesterday, if you will, and it just didn't make sense. In fact, the Public Defender's Office said in a statement that the new agreement leaves the disclosure up to the officers and prosecutors, right, who have routinely, and they say it, routinely failed. It's not my words. It's the head of the Public Defender's Office that is saying that prosecutors and the department routinely fail to disclose information regarding an officer's misconduct in the Baltimore Police Department. Okay? In fact, one of the union reps for the Baltimore Police Department, he came out and said that the agreement was impractical as most officers don't know what's in their files. Let me tell you something. I'm going to know what's in my file because if it's something that can hurt me in the long run, I need to know. If there's something that needs to be clarified in that file, I want to know as an officer working on the street. So I don't see when he made that statement that they don't know. They should know. It's just like your credit report. If you don't know what's in your credit report and you apply for a car or a house, and you get turned down, and they tell you that, you know, you had some issues with your credit report, I mean, come on now, that's on you to really work out your credit report before you even start looking for a house or a home, excuse me, a house or a car. Because you know if you have some derogatories in there, whatever it may be, it's going to hurt against you, and you're not going to be able to get that car, you're not going to be able to qualify to get that mortgage you need for your new home or refi. And it's the same case here. You don't know what's in your own personnel jacket? Come on, man, that's being stupid in my estimation. You know, and it says a lot about the FOP because they're basically saying, well, you know, our officers really don't care what's in their file. That's just basically it. And if they wanted to know, I guess they would find out. Well, you know, they should know. So let me get into this key point here. When I want to talk about an officer, particularly working for Baltimore City, actually having the option, if you will, to disclose his or her file, you'll see why that's never going to happen. I'm going to bring up an issue here that deals with internal affairs that was pointed out by the Department of Justice on page 141 of their report. And it says, indeed, we found that the department resolved the majority of approximately, listen to this, 38,000 allegations made against BPD officers from 2010 to 2015 at the command level. For you folks who don't know, there's two ways to have a complaint resolved in the Baltimore City Police Department. One, you can go through the district commander in the district where you live at. There's 9 districts in Baltimore City. So let's say you live in the Western District. You can actually go down to the Western District, see a supervisor down there to try to have your complaint resolved. Or you can make the trip down to Internal Affairs or go online, and you can file a formal complaint to Internal Affairs Division in Baltimore City. Those are the two ways to make an attempt to get your complaint against a police officer resolved. Here's the loophole. The loophole is that most officers working in the street, if you tell them I'm going to file a complaint against you, who is your supervisor, that officer's not going to tell you to go to IID, Internal Affairs. He's going to tell you, well, if you want to file a complaint, I can bring my supervisor out here, or you can go down to the district and file your complaint there. Well, guess what? Here's what happened with that particular setup. From 2010 to 2015, approximately 38,000 allegations were filed against departmental members in Baltimore City Police Department. That's in a 5-year period. Okay? Of that 38,000, 9,000 were categorized as supervisor complaints, which according to BPD commanders, guess what? Require no investigation at all. None whatsoever. So at least we know close to 10,000 complaints in that 5-year period required no investigation whatsoever. Okay? Accordingly, allegations handled at supervisor complaints sustained 0.27% of them, or 1 out of every 370 complaints were sustained. So now, here we go. You mean to tell me that out of 370 complaints, because it's 1 out of 370, all we could find out is that one officer did something wrong out of 370 complaints? The numbers say that that's not true. Just the statistics alone will tell you that's not true. So, you know, that was a big issue. Now, here we go. Many complaints that were sent to command investigations were classified as supervisor complaints. And some of them alleged serious misconduct, including assault, theft, and domestic violence. Okay? So, in fact, they gave us one incident where a complaint was filed for sexual assault. An officer was committed, or alleged to have committed, a sexual assault against a citizen. And the case was assigned to a command investigation, meaning in-house investigation at the district level. Okay? The case was downgraded from a sexual assault to a misconduct, an improper search, and discourtesy. What I tend to believe would happen, because it says improper search. Probably what happened is that this was stop and frisk maybe, or an arrest situation, and they might didn't have a female officer out in the street that day in that area working, and so the officers took it upon themselves to search her, and quite naturally we don't know what type of search took place with that particular female. So she filed a complaint. I tend to believe that it was a search where the officer probably went under her skirt, probably felt her genital areas, probably did a cursory front pat down of her breast area. Okay, and so that in her mind, because again we have to take it from the victim's mind, it was classified in her mind as a sexual assault. Well, they downgraded it, like I say, to a discourtesy and an improper search. Okay, so this is the kind of crap that goes on in the city police department. Now, Darrell D'Souza, commissioner, says he's going to, revamp the whole system. Unfortunately, a lot of people in that 38,000 people, I'm sure, have become disgruntled people over the years of the handling of their legitimate complaints. Now, granted, out of that 38,000, we know, and you and I know, that there are some complaints that were no good. And in fact, they tried to downplay it with the police department, saying that lots of times when they make arrests, to get back at an officer, an arrestee will file a false complaint. Well, you're telling me out of 38,000 that those 38,000 complaints all came from people you arrested? That's not true. So you see, this is the word game that they play in the media, right? So you got to follow what they say, listen to what they say, but you got to go behind the scenes to actually see how the facts actually bear out. So I wanted, to express that. Okay. Now, they also talked about how that investigations are delayed, meaning that you can file a complaint for Baltimore City today, and that investigation may not be heard 6, 7, 8 months out. Okay, and what the report indicated from the Department of Justice is that how can you fairly investigate a complaint from a citizen that where the incident happened, and yet your investigation is far removed from the date, meaning that individual might have had witnesses, they might have had some type of injury or whatever, and you mean to tell me that the officers don't go out and talk to this person until 9 months, 8 months, a year later, after the injury has healed? Maybe witnesses have maybe disappeared or less likely to go along with any type of questioning, so I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So they pointed that out, and that many of these complaints, when they went back and reviewed them, many of those complaints were legitimate according to the Department of Justice through their own investigation. Because what the Department of Justice did, they went back out and talked to these people. You see, that's what they did, and those people had plenty of information, had witnesses and addresses and all that. They said they turned this information over to the police department, but the police department kept telling them every time they inquired about, well, how's my case coming? How's things going in my case? The police department kept stonewalling them, said, well, the investigators are looking at it. Someone will be out to talk to you, and eventually no one comes out to talk to them. So, that was a serious incident that that the Department of Justice brought out. Let's see. Said here, which is important, said that the Department of Justice found that the investigations which took place where the accused officer's account was contradicted, meaning that when the officer said it didn't happen, the Department of Justice, after they talked to the people, they found out, again, as I said, through physical evidence, including photography and video evidence that citizens had, was still not enough to warrant an internal investigation from the police department. So this is the kind of nonsense that citizens are up against. I mean, they're up against, a mountain here, because there's no checks and balances and no one overseeing the whole process to say, look, stop it. Let's do this the way it's supposed to be done. So I'm going to refer this back to this article that I was telling you about, where they say that the officers now, have the option, if you will, to turn over their misconduct files of allegations, allegations of misconduct. That's not happening. As long as you give somebody an option in life, and that option is either good or a bad one, they're certainly going to take the good option and not the bad one. So I wanted to express that, because when you think about how we're paying folks a lot of money in these public jobs in the city, that you would think that along with the money comes common sense, where think about if you think about the process, and then you think about the citizens involved in the process, and so where are the citizens who are paying your salary? Where are they involved in the whole process? And the bottom line is they're not. They're just not. As much as I read here, I don't see where the citizens have ever been involved in the process other than making the initial complaint. Because after they make the initial complaint, it's swept under the carpet, swept under the rug, and you know it's the same process over and over again. So when they talk about transparency, the fact that you give somebody an option, that's not being transparent. You know, you have to make people do things, especially grown-ups. You got to make them do it, because if you give them an option not to do it, they won't. Okay. What do we have here? Okay. So, you know, I just wanted to bring bring that up because it just, again, we're looking at why citizens complain about police services in Baltimore City. So as much as, and I think you guys can understand, when you hear them on television talking about, well, it's crime, 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 we got to get the numbers down in terms of the crime, and the mayor's always talking about, well, we're trending. Those are her favorite words. If you listen to Mayor Pugh, she always uses the word, we're trending down. That's a statistical term, by the way. We're trending down in terms of violent crime, trending down, trending down. See, one thing about a trend, just like with Wall Street, and you look at the financial world, they always talk about the word trend, because trends are just that. They come and they go. And so when she says it, it's just kind of obfuscating really what she really probably can't say, so to speak. And so it shifts the kind of the blame. It helps support the police department when you start talking about, well, we're trending down in crime, because then it gives people hope that crime will probably decline. So, you know, I say this because when we look at how much misconduct has gone on over the past 10, 15 years in the city, I tend to believe that, and I said this before in one of my videos, that we don't see command staff being indicted. We don't see the command staff charged with misconduct and allegations of corruption. We don't see it. And I challenge anyone out there to show me in the past 10 to 15 years, where a command staff member in Baltimore City was actually charged criminally in Baltimore City, okay, for misconduct. And you're not going to get those numbers to me because they don't exist. So you might want to go after the poor patrol officer out there who does something wrong. You might want to go after the gun squad, because they certainly did something wrong, many things wrong. But guess what? They didn't operate in a vacuum out there in the streets of Baltimore City. These guys just didn't just go out here and just do what they wanted to do, and nobody knew at the command level. That's impossible. And I said this before, that kind of stuff is impossible. The problem is that because the union is so strong, and because historically the state's attorney's office has failed to go after command staff, this is why you have so many problems at the street level officer, because there's no accountability being assigned to the command staff. You just can't take a command staff and rearrange their positioning in that department and say, okay, we've revamped the department, I've assigned new people to do this and do that, but it's the same people just being shuffled around. We need to go and look at these people's background, look at their involvement with officers who were charged in certain crimes, and see why these folks weren't held accountable. Whether it was malfeasance of office or misfeasance of office, we need to know. And nobody's being charged with the minimum of malfeasance or misfeasance at the command staff at all. So I'm reluctant. I'm just one of those guys that just reluctant that, you know, we can are going to do better with holding police officers accountable in Baltimore City until you start disassembling that command staff and charging people with malfeasance and misfeasance of office. That's the only way that you can have the younger guys, men and women out there in the force, understanding what the penalties are. And also you hold the command staff, because once they find out that they can be charged and will be fired, okay, so I'm telling you now, complaints will reduce drastically in Baltimore City. The police services, you won't believe what kind of police services you'll get when that kind of stuff starts to happen. I think I've said enough in this particular video. I look forward to your comments on this. Again, I apologize for not putting anything up for a week, but I was, again, under the weather, and I'm sorry. I'll try not to get sick again. So my name is Mike McCormick, and I'm with Advanced Criminology here in Owings Mills, Maryland. Thank you.